Chris to not be here today, but like I said, he didn't even realize that it was Wednesday. But by all accords, we should be live.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, we are. Huh. And let's move over to the actual stream. Oh, okay. So, welcome to the Vomitorium. I am the Metal, and joining me today is my friend Buck. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Nice to be here.
Yeah. And I'm eating bread while talking.
Rude.
Because I could not figure out what I wanted to eat before starting this podcast, even though I've been up since like 10:30. Poor planning on my part, sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So today, at least for the start of this show, we are going to talk about how I believe, and it might only be my own personal theory. Actually, let me increase the lighting in here some. Yeah, I believe that infantilization is ruining entertainment. And that might need some explanation as to what I mean by that, because that could mean a whole lot of different things. But I have the belief that media and entertainment in general is basically treating people like they're babies, right? Or infantilization, like they're younger or less intelligent, less mature, and need things to be watered down and simplified for them. And two of my biggest examples of this are Pokemon and Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is probably getting that way for a very specific other reason, so I won't go too much into that one now. But Pokemon is a very big example. And aside from that, you can see this in films. You can see this in all kinds of different games. You can see this in comics, even books to an extent, though books haven't been hit so hard. I think it's because books still tend to be like the only place that reading is considered an intellectual hobby, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Also, thank God you actually admitted to eating bread, because otherwise it sounds like with those pauses that you're doing a very bad Jeff Goldblum impression.
Actually, I wasn't even eating at the time that I was doing that.
Okay, never mind. You were just doing a really bad Jeff Goldblum impression.
Well, I'm thinking out what I'm saying as I'm doing it, because I've thought about this before. I've just never done any presentation on it. So we're thinking through conversation, right?
Right.
Now I'm chewing on bread.
Okay, well, anyway, yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying. It has caused a lot of things to kind of be oversimplified to the point that it's like there's no challenge to it anymore at all.
Yeah, but I don't even think challenge is the only problem, right? It's having, like, no respect for the audience. Because even if you're not doing, like, saying a video game, right? When you're talking about other media, you don't need to be challenged necessarily by a movie. But the movie should respect the general intelligence of the audience. And there's always that joke that most people are stupid, but most people aren't stupid, they're average. And your average person is not like a brain dead idiot. An average person can understand most concepts, and they can understand even morals and philosophies and things that can make a story entertaining. Like, it's not just in like game mechanics. In Pokemon specifically, the example I want to bring up, a lot of it does have to do with game mechanics. But Sword and Shield is probably the big example where even the story does suffer from this because the story doesn't make any sense. So you have a game with watered down mechanics. And by watered down mechanics, I mean it still functions like a Pokemon game, but there's no random encounters. You can totally just choose to avoid fighting Pokemon. You don't have to fight them at all. You don't have to encounter a challenge right off the bat because Hop, who is by far the worst rival out of all of them, a lot of people like him. I don't understand why. But he picks your like not your weakness, your strength. So he picks the Pokemon that's weak to yours. First time in any generation that happens, right? And going out, you don't even do most of the things that the protagonist would have done in the previous stories. Leon, the champion, does all of it. You're just kind of focused on these gym battles, which look larger than life, but honestly, the gyms are kind of worse than the previous ones. These gym challenges. But because of the story does suffer, your character's not doing the challenges, you're not overcoming things. It's really easy to get past everything because you're just handed everything you need. And the chairman, Rose, the guy who runs the entire gym challenge thing, is he's kind of like a stereotype of a villain in a way. Even so much that his plan doesn't make sense because he's like an eco-terrorist. And he's talking about how in 1,000 years we'll run completely out of energy based on how we're handling right now. It's like, one, how the hell can you even predict that? Right? Like, there's no way you could know that in 1,000 years you're going to run out of energy the way you're doing things now. Or that you won't come up with some other solution. But two, how does your plan of Dynamaxing randomly wild Pokemon throughout the entire country because the energy will be a resource actually solve anything? Because these Pokemon will just be rampaging everywhere and there will be nobody around to even use any of the energy. And there's also no explanation why this stuff will even be a salvation, a solving to the energy crisis. There's absolutely no explanation whatsoever. It's just, I said so you have to assume that. They don't go into anything, and because you're not the one that's participating in these events, Leon is, you're probably actually missing a lot of information that would have otherwise been given to you in the game. Just to make the game easier, and, what's his name, Masada, the guy who makes the Pokemon games, the guy in charge of Game Freak, has even said that the whole reason he's doing this stuff is to make the game accessible to everyone. Or to appeal to everyone. But the honest truth is, it doesn't appeal to everyone. It doesn't appeal to me. And it's not like Pokemon games were hard in the first place.
Okay, I hadn't actually gone that far into Pokemon Sword and Shield. I just wasn't interested at the very get-go.
Yeah.
After what they were talking about. So having heard all that, that definitely sounds really bad.
Yeah, it's like nothing makes sense. All of the routes are tunnels, right? They don't look like tunnels or hallways, but they're all just like single halls where it's like, here's the start of the route, here's the end. There's no divergence or places to explore. There's no actual caves in the game either. Everything's just straight up tunnel from point A to point B. It looks pretty, but that's about it.
No caves, and where do you farm Zubats?
Yeah. Oh, you don't?
Garbage.
Yeah. 0 out of 10, no Zubats. And I really don't want to go on to a rant about Pokemon, even though the beginning of the show has basically been a rant on Pokemon, but you see this everywhere. Like, the specific reason Dungeons and Dragons is going the way it is because of the people that have come in and taken over it. And that's just a problem with Wizards of the Coast altogether. But Dungeons and Dragons is another good explanation or good example of why infantilization is killing things. Because everything is overpowered and not even necessarily in a fun way. Because there's no challenge to the game. It used to kind of be in the older versions at level 15, balance was thrown out of the window. But now it's kind of like at level 10, balance is thrown out the window. And we were in a campaign last, right, when you were experiencing this, where the guy was intentionally leveling us up faster than you're supposed to, but it's honestly not hard to level in 5e. And once you get to 10, you pretty much don't have to worry about whether combat will kill you unless you're the type of person who wants to go into like the crazy post-endgame stuff where you fight really challenging monsters that most people will never end up playing against. I mean, most people don't even probably get to 20.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, until he started specifically making things that were stun resistant, the second our monk unlocked the ability to stun people, kind of just railroaded things.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just a mechanic of the game. It's the fact that he could do it so often was maybe a problem. But it seems the intent, and I've actually heard this from like people on Twitter that work at the company and stuff like that, that the reason the mechanics aren't as challenge based as they used to be is because they want the game to be more accessible to everyone. Which anytime anybody says more accessible to everyone, that means even a baby could play it. That's basically code for even a baby or even a monkey could do it, right? They don't want the battle to be the focus of gameplay anymore. They just want the story. And like I've said many times, at that point, why even play a battle-focused tabletop RPG when there's plenty of them that you can play that are only focused on story?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can definitely see how it's too easy. I mean, you remember, I had a character I was bored of playing and tried to kill him off and purposely trying to die. I couldn't get it done. Like when you are trying to get yourself killed and yet you're still making it out of there with your health still in the double digits, that's a problem.
Yeah. Sorry, somebody who possibly would hop in sent me a message. But yeah, I mean, that could also be mostly DM error, but it is hard that you could leave it up to DM error. Like, you shouldn't be able to. If you want to die, you should easily be able to just, like, throw your life away. And not have any problem doing it, because the monster should be able to kill you because you aggravated them. And that is a big problem with tabletop games is your DM is in charge of the monsters and in charge of like literally everything that happens in the game. So a lot of things in general you have to leave up to DM error. But you also shouldn't leave it up to a DM to make the game challenging enough to even be interesting to your average player. Like, that should kind of be a given within the system.
Yeah, that is true. Because that campaign was really, really easy.
Yeah, part of that was also it was Matt's first time ever DMing. And as I've said it many times, it's you should always start with the starter kit. But the even if you play with some type of module that'll help you learn how to DM, then yeah, if you If you start with a module that will teach you how to DM, these modules are still way too easy.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say much. All I know is that it seems easy, but at the same time not as easy as 4E, and that's the last time I played, so... Because I wasn't into D&D long enough to know how it used to be. Like, I only know the broken stuff.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so at the moment we're talking about how the infantilization of entertainment is ruining things.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, so I started out by using Pokemon as an example, but we've even talked about this recently. I was using Dungeons and Dragons just now as well, where everything is kind of becoming too easy for the sake of only having to focus on the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Are we
not just
live?
Yeah, we're live. I've been live since 2 o'clock. That's the schedule
right.
for the Vomitorium. 2 to 5, you can come and go as you please.
Cool. Well, I'm Marsupial Gamer. Welcome to me.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Good. You know where I see this happening a lot
Where?
is in like these, what do you call them? In video games where it's essentially just a series of, you tell the character to move until you get to the next story element. And
Tutorials?
that's like, yeah. That's kind of it. I mean, it's
Kind of like a walking simulator, some people refer to them
yeah,
as.
like these,
You know.
like the Telltale games, and I don't even know. Everyone gushes over the original Last of Us game. I don't even know what the gameplay is like. I know the story.
The
But
gameplay
is
is
there gameplay?
yeah, it's kind of just you avoiding the mushroom infected things while telling your immune little girl to go and scavenge stuff until you have enough equipment to actually kill them. And then you barely spend any time killing them. It's still just avoiding things.
Right. So, I mean, am I right about that? That's sort of a game that's super
Yeah,
easy?
I actually never cared for that game. I don't know why
Yeah,
people
I mean,
rave
you're
for
just
it
trying
so
to get
much.
people.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenge of your game is trying to swim to find a pallet because your immune little girl can't swim. That's already a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
have no problem with story-driven games, but I mean, that can't be the whole thing.
Yeah, like, well, one of the ones that bothered me is Final Fantasy 13, right? Which clearly they
Yeah.
heard the response to that, so they started moving away. But RPGs are pretty much always story driven. That's the whole point of playing an RPG. You know you're there for the story.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy's always had interesting mechanics that evolved over the years. Until you get to 13, where it has the layout system or whatever. You have your formations. So every
Yeah.
person has like 3 jobs. And you set up specific formations with one of each of those 3 jobs, and you can switch them throughout the battle. But the problem is you don't have to put any input other than the formations, because the auto will automatically pick the most efficient thing to do as long as you're in the right formation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it basically
I
just
haven't played
becomes a
that in a
grinding
while.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
A game of you don't even have to grind too much because you get enough experience going along, but it becomes a game of just hitting the L and R button to get through battles to get to the next cutscene. And it's a
Right.
beautiful game. Like, I don't hate the story. It's not the best one. 2 and 3 had better stories than the first.
Mm-hmm.
But the story's not good enough to hold its own for not having good gameplay in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was too bored with that game. I didn't play through the whole thing. I got maybe halfway through, and I was like, I can't
It becomes
do
a
it
chore.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not invested enough in the story. I want good gameplay.
And I have that problem with so many things. In fact, one game that I actually have the exact opposite problem with was Borderlands 3, which is not a problem with infantilization. It's a problem with maybe agendas, but also just people getting lazy. The gameplay was great. Like, I enjoyed when things functioned the way they did. I think the game came out broken. But when things functioned the way they did, I love the way the game played. But the story was so piss poor, I kind of wanted to stop playing so many times, because one of the things I liked about the old Borderlands games were how good the story was and how funny everything was.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely not a game that falls into the category of infantilization. You see it everywhere. And for some reason, these are the games that get all the awards too, because, you know, all award shows are rigged. It's all about who you know and who's connected to what. But it's especially The Last of Us, which we were even just in code calling B Movie 2020 before the what was it? What are they called when you have a God, I'm trying to think of the word. When you're not allowed to review something yet, when there's a stop on it until a certain date.
Oh, like a pre-order kind of.
Or there's a specific word, and I'm spacing on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking on that too, but I know what you're talking about. How there's like some games that you have a certain date before you can even release the review.
Mm-hmm. And
like a blackout.
Yeah, kind of. Because that's gone now. That they were killing everybody's stuff because of the leak, right? Mm-hmm. And if you even had mentioned the game, a lot of things were just being killed on the spot.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so we had a code word for it last time, but because it's gone, we could just talk about it all we want. And no, I didn't like the first one for those exact reasons. And I have no interest in the second one, even before all the stuff came out about it.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause it's like, what am I going to play? I don't even care that these people died because I didn't get attached to them in the first one.
Yeah. Embargo. Isn't that
Embargo, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that
embargo.
is.
That was the word I was spacing on.
Yeah. Evan says he liked B movie.
No, different B movie. It's like B, like the letter dash movie, like a B film.
Like a really bad, cheesy, like horror film from like way back. The kind of ones where like somebody will be sitting in a corner gasping for like 3 hours after they should have died.
Yeah. But that does bring up the question, do you like jazz?
Yeah. Do I like it?
Oh, no, that was a quote from the B movie.
Oh.
I never watched that, so...
It's been forever since I've
missing
seen
out on all the memes.
No, I see all the memes, I just don't get them.
Well, that's exactly what I just said. You're missing out on all the memes.
Okay, the other type of missing out. Alright, I get it.
Yeah, you don't get the cultural context around them.
That's right.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you, really.
Yeah, but you're even like seeing this in movies too, where plots are dumbed down because they think audiences aren't able to comprehend them or something like that, or you think that you can't hurt the audience feelings, so every death is kind of like a fake death, right? Like Star Wars, the last one was a really good example of that, where almost nobody died until they did. But then you're not even sure that they actually died for real because so many people have been coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you know, we already killed so many people and people freaked out about that. We can't kill any more. We can't actually have Chewbacca die in an explosion. No, it turns out he's fine. And there's just a bunch of like, this person's dead until they're not, until they are.
I miss when he died because two planets smashed together.
Well, one of them was kind of more like a really small moon.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
everything in movies these days has to be so fast. Like, there's if you watch a sci-fi movie from like the 70s or 80s, they're a lot more contemplative. They're a lot slower paced, and they allow you to think. It's not just like laser beams and jump cuts all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I hear people talking about how, oh well, Avengers Endgame was supposed to be the super emotional roller coaster, and all I remember from it, the closest to emotion I felt was strictly because of the little girl, and that was only because I have a niece of the same age, so.
Oh yeah, I haven't felt
Oh,
anything for any of the Marvel films in 5 or 6 films.
yeah. I mean, I like them. I think they're just fun, but they are kind of mindless entertainment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, and it's like, who was it? Scorsese was the one that brought it out, and he's like, they're not cinema, they're theme park rides, and I think he kind of
Yeah,
had a point to that. They, the lowest common denominator of entertainment,
right.
and they're fun. Like I wouldn't particularly say I liked Endgame, but I did have a fun time seeing it in the theater. I probably wouldn't watch it again.
Hmm.
And a lot of roller coasters like that too. It's like I had a fun time riding that. I don't know if I'd ride it again. But it's weird because that used to be the criticism of the carnival. You went to the carnival for cheap entertainment that even a baby could enjoy. Not that
Yeah,
you wouldn't ride a ride, but you'd go into the circus tent, you'd see some clowns, maybe the strongman do something. And now we're just circling right back around from entertainment advancing and advancing to being the carnival again. And it's hitting everywhere. And I think it might even have something to do with an infantilization of society. Especially with like
yeah.
everybody looking for their freebies and stuff.
Well, and you see people talking to each other like they're children.
Yeah.
Really strange.
Everybody's freaking out over what's going on. And it's not like they shouldn't be taking things seriously, but it's like everybody's going to die eventually. You're going to have to say goodbye to some people. And the world is a rough place. It's like I always find it funny how many one of the popular topics that people always brought up was how you would do in a zombie apocalypse, but and I've always thought this too, based on everybody's reaction to what's going on, I'm pretty sure 99% of these people would die within the first day.
That's right. They'd
Yeah.
all become the zombies.
Yeah.
The rest of us.
Let's
So maybe
hoard
I'll-
toilet paper.
Yeah, really. Well, that's what I would do in a zombie apocalypse. I mean, otherwise you're going to end up wiping with leaves. I mean, you don't want that.
I'd rather wipe with leaves than run out of food.
You gotta hoard them Twinkies.
If you run out of food, then you won't need toilet paper. You won't need to go.
Well, you'll still go. You have bodily waste. You'll go for a little while until you run out of the ability to live. No, the worst part is if you're not eating, the only thing that really comes out starts to become like little piddles of like the runs.
All right, we don't need to talk about that. I've been working outside for the last week, and I've found I'm not hydrating enough. Speaking of things like that, and it's kind of convenient because I hardly ever have to go pee, but it's probably not very healthy.
Yeah, you should definitely make sure you're not overhydrating either, because that seems to be more of a problem these days than underhydration.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're working outside, you got to have like Gatorade or
Hmm.
Powerade or something, because if you just drink pure water, yeah, you could have problems. You basically get low on electrolyte.
Yeah, and you need electrolytes. It's what plants crave.
Yeah,
You guys are
and
actually basically doing the same thing right now, because Buck here does the cart pushing at Target.
oh really? Okay, cool. Yeah, I just got switched, so I'm working at Walmart. It's a temporary job. Oh, I do have some good news, by the way, if you care about my personal life.
Oh, of course I do. I've been
But
keeping up with it.
yeah, but yeah, they just switched me because they weren't able. Apparently, the Walmart that I'm working at the grocery store at the neighborhood market, and they way overhired.
Hmm.
So like after the first 2 weeks, they had to cut everybody's hours, and they cut mine down to like 28 a week, and I was like, dude, I need 40 hours to live. So they were like, well, we've got too many cashiers, so do you want to be in maintenance? I was like, whatever. If you can give me 40 hours, I'll do it. So that, you know, 10% emptying the trash and 90% pushing carts. So that's what I'm doing. But my good news is I got in touch with a client today. Yay! Because I'm in software development, and they actually have work for me. So
Well, that's good.
I actually got off the phone with them just before this, and it's not a ton of work. It's not enough probably to quit my Walmart job, but
It's enough to get you into an apartment.
yeah, it's a week or two's worth of work, and so it's which is literally several months worth of work at Walmart in terms of pay. So
That's
yeah,
good. We need to get you out of that car.
yeah, seriously. So I may be live streaming again myself pretty soon.
Oh, that's good. And I enjoy your streams too. So anybody who's watching this too, go on to. I think you also go to all three, like YouTube, Twitch, and D Live, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Go follow Marsupial Gamer. I
Yeah,
believe
I'll be
that's
doing.
everywhere, right?
Yep, pretty much everywhere. And yeah, hopefully in the next day or two, I'll be back up and running.
That's good. What game were you playing last?
I was playing Link's Awakening DX for the original Game Boy Color.
Ah, the good version.
Yeah. Not the remake. Although I have streamed the remake, but
Yeah, I mean the remake's fun, but there's just something about specifically the DX version because I like
yeah,
the original. The DX just felt like it ran smoother, even besides the things that they added to it.
yeah, yeah. It's a nice long game too, and I have it on a modded SNES Mini, which is how I'm able to connect to the computer with HDMI and everything.
But
And
see, that's a game
it's
that
great.
does not infantilize you at all.
Oh no,
Because
definitely not.
in the Zelda fashion, yeah, at least there's people to talk to. You can figure out what you're doing, but it is so easy to get lost and not know and just wander around until you figure out what you had to do.
Yeah. Now, in that game, I've played that game so many times, I know exactly what to do. But
Yeah.
my next, after this, I'm going to play the Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons games. And I've never played those except
Ooh.
for maybe like 5 minutes.
So it's basically
Uh,
going to be a blind playthrough.
yeah, completely blind. I mean, I might look up a few things. Oh, yeah, Evan says I'm also on Mixer. Yes, that's correct. But yeah, that'll be a blind playthrough. That'll be challenging because those games are unforgiving.
Yeah.
They're a challenge.
I enjoy them, though they're
Yeah,
probably the Zelda games I know the least.
yeah,
Because while I've beaten them, I've only played like each one of them once.
yeah.
While other ones, it's like I've played Ocarina of Time so many times I could probably run it blind at this point. Like just like
Right.
literally blind with a fold on.
What's funny is that Nintendo hasn't yet, knock on wood, given in to this infantilization thing, and their latest, Breath of the Wild, at least in the beginning, is pretty unforgiving too. I mean, a lot
Yeah,
of the
it felt like
forward.
the old Zelda to some extent, like the original one.
Yeah.
In many ways,
Yeah,
it almost
exactly.
felt
I
like it
mean,
was like a soft reboot of the series.
yeah. I mean, you start out with only 3 hearts, and people, when it first came out, people were dying right and left, and they're like, "Damn, this game's hard."
I actually remember my
Um,
first death in that game too. I
yeah,
had made it all the way almost to Kakariko, and I decided I'm not gonna go the way they tell me. I'm gonna climb up this cliff face. And
yeah.
I made it all the way up, and what I didn't know was just behind Kakariko Village, there's a guardian that runs around on one of the cliff faces, and I pop
Oh
my
yeah,
head up right there, and he's already there. I'm just like, understandable, have a nice day. And he blasted me, and I died. Falling
yeah.
down the. And then I love the way you die in midair because they don't actually give you the game over until you stop moving.
Right.
So I had to watch myself fall all the way down the cliff to the
Yeah.
ground, and then it gave me the game over.
Yeah. Guardian pops up. He's like, "Hello there. You're gonna die now." In fact, I'm pretty sure the first time I died in that game, it was from one of the guardians on the plateau,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whatever it's called. The in the beginning area
The
there are
Great
some,
Plateau.
the Great Plateau. Yeah,
Yeah.
where there's some guardians that are stuck to the ground. But yeah, ran into one of them, and he zapped me.
That
Yeah, and
was
you have like,
actually my first death too.
and you have no
It was
health.
just, what's that?
Yeah. Goodbye. Either that, or I always fall off the Temple of Time. You have to climb up onto the roof, and I'm trying to get back down. Don't have the the paraglider, and I'm trying to get back to the ladder, and I just missed it and fell off. Dead.
Yeah. But that I love it though. You want a game where you have to die a few times.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
you don't want to just go through a whole game that you've
Well,
never played before and never die.
Yeah, and that game won Game of the Year for 2017 from like every place that has a Game of the Year. Game
Despite
of the
all
Year,
odds, you know.
Yeah.
Because usually
I mean,
a Nintendo game get Game of the Year.
What's that?
I said a Nintendo game get Game of the Year. Usually
Yeah,
the industry's
surprised.
kind of stacked against them.
Yeah, but that one was a masterpiece. So, it's okay to make a hard game, and I mean, people love, Cuphead.
Mm-hmm.
That's an incredibly difficult game.
Yeah, the game doesn't even have to be difficult either, right? Because Mario Odyssey really didn't feel like it was holding your hand too much. And it was an easy game, anybody could play it, but then there were certain things that were still very challenging in it, like if you wanted to get every single one of the bits in each place.
Sure.
And that's just Nintendo, period. Which is why I don't blame them for Pokemon, because it's mostly Game Freak.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pokemon's dumbed down like crazy. I never actually played them, but I heard, Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. I heard they're good. The people seem to like them, but they're so dumbed down. You don't have battles anymore.
Yeah, because they're trying to emulate Pokemon Go.
Right. So.
And there's still
that.
battling.
Throw a ball.
But the battling is only against like the gym leaders and everyone in the gym.
Yeah.
But you have the same problem for the most part in Sword and Shield, which is what we were talking about before you came in. Before we were talking about tabletop games being ruined by it too, is in Sword and Shield, there is still traditional battling, but they hand everything to you, which they've been doing for the last couple of generations too. In X and Y, they give you a Kanto starter after you make it past the first town. Like, there's the starting town, then there's the big city where you meet the professor and everything. So you get the starter from that game, and then he lets you pick a Kanto starter. So now you have 2 starters. So you can pick the one that offsets the type that you picked if you want.
Yeah.
And then they also, at some point, the Cano Starter can Mega Evolve too. Whichever one you pick gets the ability to use the Mega Evolution. They also give you a Lucario that can Mega Evolve in the game for free. You don't have to do anything to get it. It's just part of the story. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they also just give you a Latios or Latias for free, depending on which one you are, that can Mega Evolve because of the Sword function. Mm-hmm. And they just give you things left and right in these newer games. And Sword and Shield is no exception to that. They just hand everything to you. You don't even do the important things. So in the earlier games, have you ever played like the original Pokemon?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with the series. You just haven't played Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu and stuff like that.
Right. I think the last one I played was X and Y.
Yeah. So you remember the things, like just giving it to you in X and Y.
Yeah.
In the newest one, too. So in the previous ones, you would have to be the one to take down the rockets or whatever the gang was that was threatening the countryside or the world or blah, blah, blah. In this one, the champion Leon basically does all the stuff that the protagonist would have done before.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can focus on your gym challenges. And even that right there as a story element is kind of infantilizing. It's like, no, this is too much for you. You need to focus on your gym battles. I'm going to go do this. And his younger brother, because your rival is the champion's younger brother in this one, Hop, picks the Pokemon that you're strong against. And it's the first rival to pick someone that you're strong against instead of weak against. So the first battle is a piece of cake. You don't even have to try. Because in the newer ones, these Pokemon start with elemental attacks. In the first game, it wasn't a problem for them to even be your weakness because everybody only had Tackle and Growl anyway.
Right.
But it's just everything's getting easier. And even the final battle in the game, spoilers, I guess, for anybody who cares. I don't, because the game is stupid. In the final battle, there's like this huge abomination of a Pokemon that is like the reason Dynamax is even a thing. It's like this is where the energy comes from. And this big polygon-shaped dragon thing beats the champion Leon in a battle. And you could even argue that the only reason you're able to beat it is because Leon weakened it before you got there. But you don't even fight it by yourself. The two legendary dogs, like the Sword and the Shield dog, show up as well and help you fight the final boss. So really, you didn't even do anything in the whole game other than your gym battles.
Right.
That sounds like hot garbage.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad I didn't get into Pokemon, really.
Yeah. Well, I loved the series, like, it was one of my favorite franchises. And for good reason, too. It's like the most popular media franchise of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I didn't mind X and Y so much. But I could feel it starting to change there.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought it was a good jumping point. I thought it was going to get better.
Yeah. I couldn't really even get into X and Y. I just kind of got bored with it.
Yeah. And Sun and Moon was just oof. Because I like fighting the gyms. I don't even mind that one of the main focuses of the new game is the gym battles. I've always enjoyed playing the gyms. I don't get tired of them. But they thought they'd change things up and they had these island trials instead of gym battles in Sun and Moon.
Yeah.
And the island trials.
Oh, you know what? I did.
You played
Sun and Moon, but
yeah.
I think I only got through like the first trial, and then I got sick of that.
Yeah, because they're like watered down gyms. It's like all you do is do a simple Pokemon battle, not even like a multi-phase Pokemon battle where the gym leader has more than one Pokemon. You do a few of those back to back, and then you fight like this souped up one at the end. And it's like the puzzles are super simple, even compared to how the gym puzzles used to be.
Right.
They're not satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, it was so forgettable that I forgot that I actually even played it. But yeah, now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, wait a minute, yeah, I do have that. I did play that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I liked about X and Y, were that the gyms actually looked really cool. They did a lot of cool things with the gyms in there. Like there was ones
Yeah.
that would rotate because there's like a gravity-based gym, and there's a rock climbing gym, so you actually had to navigate yourself up these rock walls and end up whether you wanted to fight all the trainers or not, trying to avoid them.
Well, you know what's I find interesting is that, you know, when the latest one came out, what are they called again? The newest
Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't you remember that? You know, of course, the latest and greatest thing comes out. All these live streamers have to play it, so people were playing that on Twitch like crazy. And I'm watching it, and it's like, okay, they're riding around on a bike trying to get a shiny for like hours at a time. I'm like, how is this fun? How is this even a game? You know, and it came and went so fast. You know, a lot of games do that, but I mean, it seemed like within a month they stopped playing and went on to the next thing. And I'm like, yeah, glad I didn't get into that. That looked boring.
Yeah. They are boring. And I even mentioned it earlier. Junichi Masuda, the guy who makes the Pokemon games, he's like the lead of Game Freak, has said that the reason he does it is to make them accessible or appealing to everyone. Which you literally can't do. You can't make something appeal to everyone. And Pokemon is already the most popular franchise in the planet, so if you're going to appeal to the most people in general, you're doing it already. You're not going to find anyone that it doesn't already appeal to other than young kids who haven't seen it yet. And they're either going to like it or they're not, like the people before them.
Mm-hmm.
And the games were never difficult. Like, I was 4, I think, when the first Pokemon came out. And I had it and beat it the year it came out. If a 4-year-old can beat Pokemon, one that's critically acclaimed as the hardest Pokemon just because mechanics were stupid back then.
Right.
Then you don't need to make these games any easier. They were already just getting easier over time from the mechanics being more fluid and well designed. You don't have to actually intentionally make the gameplay easier.
Yeah. I wonder if people weren't getting all the way through the game or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Pokemon has, at least from report, because unlike games with achievements and stuff, you can't track whether people are beating the games in Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But from self-report, Pokemon is one of the most beaten games. Like, the clear rate is really high. Most people beat the Elite Four. I think one of the big complaints is a lot of people complain about not catching all the Pokemon. Which in the first game was a clear rate. And even kind of one of the clear conditions in the second game. As of the third, though, especially since not every Pokemon came back to the base game, you had to trade and do other things to get everything, it no longer kind of became the clear condition for the game. Pretty much everybody cared about the Elite Four, and you kind of figured that Game Freak thought the same way, because they added more to do along the path in Ruby and Sapphire from start to Elite Four. And because of that, in like Emerald and On, they or even Crystal started with the Battle Tower, they started adding post-game things for you to do, because catching all the Pokemon is absurd, and they didn't think anybody would consider that an actual clear condition. Only like really obsessive people are going to go and collect every single Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Evan says he needs to start a game franchise. I suggested he call it Evanmon Sudden Moon. Not Sun and Moon, Sudden Moon.
Sudden Moon, yeah.
So what? He's gonna run around in a Power Ranger suit with a flap on the back and just moon people?
There you go. Perfect. On sale this holiday season, I'm sure. Evanmon mooning. Evan going around mooning people. So what else is infantilized comic books, I guess.
Comic books, yeah, definitely. But I think part of that is also maybe the same reason why D&D has been going that way, and it's less to do with target audience and more to do with the people who have taken over.
Yeah,
Less
it's interesting.
infantilizing to the user base and more infantilizing the ability to actually get into this and create it yourself.
I don't know.
Well, it was interesting. I was talking to you, Metal, about one of the writers for Fifth Edition was actually more upset about them keeping certain things more complicated, or at least more time consuming than he thought they needed to be.
Yeah, because I don't think there's anything that's complicated in D&D to almost anyone, but there are things that are like needlessly time consuming for how simple things are.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it was complicated, you'd want it to be time consuming because you want to be able to take the time to really sink into something that's complicated. But
Yeah.
because it's simple, like character creation, it's one of the simplest things in the world. It shouldn't take a long time to create a character because there's not really a lot to it, and yet for some reason it's very time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about something that's easy to get into and yet can be complex if you want it to be.
Like how you were saying the battle system in Shadow the Demon Lord, which is obviously what you're talking about, right?
Right.
Is a fast-paced battle system. Well, a fast-paced battle system has the capacity to be more complex because you can get more done in it. While in D&D, if you have more than 5 people in a party, the battle doesn't get any more complicated. It just takes too long.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, anyone listening, I highly recommend checking out Shadow of the Demon Lord by Schwalb Entertainment. I am not invested in it, but I found it extremely fun. It's kind of
Though
like
you may be based on what we were talking about.
maybe we'll keep that to ourselves for now. But
oh, definitely.
yeah,
You don't want
Robert
to
Schwalb
talk about potential projects before they're actually on the ground.
right. Yeah, before they're even on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shadow of the Demon Lord. It's a great game, and it is what you're saying. It can be. I mean, it is very simple to get into. Very quick to spin up a character. Very quick to start a campaign. But it does have a very deep system. You can make it as complex as you want.
Yeah. And I think who was it? Evan. I was talking to Evan about this, and he asked me if like because Dungeons and Dragons is a D20 system. That's basically what you would call it, right? If he asked me if D20 systems were like the characters were disposable or problem, and my response to that wasn't that they are designed to have disposable characters or assets, is that the whole system's designed to be disposable. Right? Because they don't really care about the systems anymore to an extent. They just want to be able to throw the system out to get straight to the story. And that's why like everything is time consuming, but also simplified to the fact that you don't have to really worry about dying in combat anymore.
Right.
So if you don't have to worry about combat, you can just spend more time on the story.
Right.
What I like, what you were talking about with Shadow of the Demon Lord, is that it is kind of an instance-based game. Like you can have more combat, and you can get in and out of combat really fast, so you can have more and more skirmishes than you would in a session of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it was definitely more combat focused, or I guess as they call not what's the word? Encounter focused.
Yes,
I guess
more encounters.
And there's more that you could do. I mean, an encounter doesn't necessarily have to be a battle.
No, it doesn't.
So you had more options, and it went faster and just seemed more interesting because I played both. Robert, he lives in Tennessee, and I was in Tennessee for a while, and I played a D&D campaign where he was the DM, and I played a Demon Lord campaign where he DM'd, and it's a very different feel. It was more interesting. I just got more into it with the Demon Lord one, and I mean he's a great storyteller and all, so that part of it was great. But
Yeah.
it was just
We also had the
getting
benefit
into
of
battle.
the like the creator being the DM, so he's going to be able to know how to
Yeah.
do this better than anybody else at this point.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome, but and really really funny, but just being in the battle and just not having to sit around for people to sort of decide what to do. It was very it's very obvious, sort of what well not obvious. It just went quicker. It's hard to describe, but it just it was just more fast paced and more interesting.
Evan demands agency.
in Evan's in Evan's new RPG, if you get mooned, you lose. Apparently.
I guess, yeah. But even the Final Fantasy one that I was talking about with you, that this fan made one, and I think there's some similarities between this in these two games in intent. It's scene based, right? So everything's a scene, or like the encounters you're talking about, and a scene could be a battle, but it could also be a trap, or it could even be a negotiation between two parties, right?
Right.
And it's just trying to keep things moving and fast pace. And part of the problem is that Dungeons and Dragons has kind of always been an entry level game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I third edition, or even specifically 3.5, which kind of added more complexity back into third edition, was kind of like the already the bottom line level of what makes a good entry level game. If you got any more simple than that, or even more watered down than that, I guess would be a better way to say it, then you're not an entry level game. You're Candyland. You're your baby's first tabletop. And that's kind of what fourth edition was, because in fourth edition everything was just so overpowered that there was almost no point in combat other than showing off.
Right.
And fifth kind of somewhat corrected that, but it still feels just as bad. Like, I always heard it was better until I played it. I was disappointed in the system when I actually played it.
Yeah.
But from what you're telling me, I think I would probably enjoy Shadow of the Demon Lord a lot.
I think so. I've been meaning to get back into it. We should start up a
campaign.
We should get it. Other friends that want to get it and start up a campaign.
Yeah, we should. I'm sure something like Roll20 or whatever is completely capable of running it at this point.
Yeah, as far as I recall, it is a typical D20 RPG.
But that's the thing, right? So it is a D20, but it's not a disposable system, and nothing in the system is disposable because the person who created it actually cares about the system that he's working on. So much to the point that he made it because he was upset with the system that he was working on and left.
Right. And I mean, it's been out for many years, like 5 years or so, and he's still coming out with modules for it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Improvements and things.
And that's what I like seeing. I like seeing people who are actually passionate about the things they're working on, because it usually means that there will be quality somewhere.
Yeah.
The person might be lacking in certain areas, but if you get other people together, you can cover up for your faults.
Yeah. And he goes to, conventions and things and DMs little short campaigns and things like that all the time too. Which, I mean, I guess Wizards of the Coast probably does, but I don't think they're as into their own game as he is.
Don't think Wizards of the Coast actually cares about Dungeons and Dragons outside of it being something they can sell. Like, it's just strictly marketing to them.
Yeah. It's just a revenue generator, I guess.
Like, I don't even think they really see it as a user experience or tabletop RPG. I think they see it as a board game that they sell.
Yeah.
Right. Because something that I'm sure you've noticed before, there's no tools in the Dungeon Master's book for homebrewing things. To actually make like balanced homebrew stuff.
Yeah.
And you would think if somebody actually cared about the tabletop experience, you would want to be giving as many tools to the Dungeon Master as possible so they could actually make things balanced and entertaining for their players.
Mm-hmm.
But the Dungeon Master book now is barely any bigger than the player's manual.
Right.
And barely has anything different in it than the player's manual unless you have a module to go along with it, and you actually have the Dungeon Master's independent manual for that module.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just feels like you're running a board game.
Yeah.
If you're just not homebrewing everything yourself, I guess. And that's what most
Have
people
you looked
do now.
into? Have you looked into like the Ravenloft stuff that they came out?
No, I don't know if I will.
I was just curious. I haven't either. I mean, I have the book because they send them.
Yeah.
Me, but I haven't actually read other than the player's manual and the you know.
I mean, I've read a lot of the Unearthed Arcana stuff. And man,
for
if you
5th
want,
edition.
yeah, for 5th edition. And if you
Okay.
want, because Unearthed Arcana is kind of like, I guess it's kind of like patches in a way. It's like, oh, here's some things that could make your game more interesting.
Yeah.
But in 5th edition, all of them are just like, here's a way of making your characters even more broken than they were before. Think more interesting, this makes it less interesting. You just gave the monk the ability to just like grow astral arms out of his back and one-shot things. How is that more interesting? You turned him into a JoJo's character. I guess that's cool on paper, but once you actually start